Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast, recorded at probably one of our earliest slots ever in the 200-plus episodes we have ever done. It is 8:04 a.m. Central Standard Time, and Mike is probably walking around his house with his silk robe, sipping on tea as we speak.
Yes. It's a beautiful morning.
It is a beautiful morning. It's going to be 60 today here in Nashville.
Oh, it is? That's good. Good to know that.
It's a great day.
Because I was going to go outside in a little while, and I probably would have wore a winter coat.
Well, I mean, I think it's still a little chilly right now. But, yeah, it's going to be a good day. I think a lot of people are getting some unseasonably warm weather right now, and get out and enjoy it. Everybody complains about being stuck inside this time of year. So don't be on the treadmill today. Don't be on the trainer unless you have to. Get outside, enjoy things before what I imagine is going to be a next crazy week for most athletes with a lot of travel and holiday action going on as we creep up to Christmas Eve and Christmas, which is next week.
Yeah. Here I'm even looking at my hometown Beloit where I'm going to be heading, and they're going to be in the mid-40s.
Hey, don't tell me there's no such thing as global warming.
Trust me, that is outdoor riding weather up there.
Yeah,
right
it is. It's usually like 20s and teens.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right now for Beloit.
Sure it is.
Let's talk today about underwater basket weaving.
Okay.
And its cross-training benefits to triathlon and off-season sport-specific strength when it comes to transition.
That's fine with me. It'll parlay perfectly into the article I just read about.
No, I'm just kidding, obviously. But yeah, if you is your first time joining us, this is a Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. We come to you twice a week. We're somewhere in the 220s in terms of episodes.
226,
226 going strong, going into 2019. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'm Coach Robbie. That is Mike, color commentator, age group athlete extraordinaire, single, Pisces, and likes long rides in the lab.
And I am the club membership coordinator now.
You are the club membership. That sounds like such a YMCA role. Because the YMCA is like quote unquote not for profit, which is like it's a total sham and a joke. But you can always see when they make up roles to like spend money, and then that basically sounds like the title you just gave yourself: club membership coordinator, administrator, oversee of processes. Mike Tarrolly.
Yeah, wellness coordinator.
That's always one of my favorites, a wellness coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, coordinating the wellness.
Coordinating wellness through our very popular club membership that we just launched. You can go to crushingiron.com and check that out. It's on the tab all the way to the right. Basically, it is access to all of the training plans that we have online throughout the entire year at no additional charge, and then also a 12-week customized plan that I will put out and make for you for the A race of your choice, and a whole other slew of benefits. And it is $299 for the whole year, and that is till December 31st. So hop on that if you've been waiting, or you want to make it a good Christmas gift for somebody. And then if you have any additional questions about what the plan might entail or the benefits or how to use it, the onboarding process, you can reach out to Mike directly, crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you have any other additional questions about anything, you can also email me directly, c26coach@gmail.com. And you can also always visit our website, crushingiron@gmail.com, crushingiron.com. Hit crushingiron.com, and that will give you kind of an overview of
it happens.
It does. It happens. All the great things that we do, and we're trying to do for the triathlon community. And again, thanks for listening.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and
it's really our mission is to do good things for the triathlon community. That's how it all started.
And I do have to say that I've been totally floored by the amount of people who have responded to your your sales pitch about not being a lurker in our closed Crushing Iron Facebook group and have shared their stories. Some of them have just been kind of like, honestly, just kind of jaw dropping.
Yeah.
And I think it's been just outstanding. And so it's such a great. It's just great to hear and great to read those stories of people that are they're just doing the deal, And I think oftentimes that people like that don't often get celebrated the way that they should be, and the things that they've done, they have accomplished. Because I think people always expect that you should just always be. You should always be in shape. You should always be like, where you are and what you're doing. And you should if you haven't been there and you're back to go, well, you never should have gotten that way in the first place. And I just couldn't disagree more with any of that. And I think it's just really important to see the journeys that so many of these athletes take, whether it's with weight or with mental health or with just, the regular struggles that we have in life, and how they've turned things around. They've used triathlon and training as just a mechanism for this incredible positive change that they've had in their entire life. And it's one of the main reasons why anytime I hear somebody talk about like triathlon is such a selfish sport, why it's totally not. There is nothing selfish about taking care of yourself, and there is absolutely nothing selfish about making yourself a better person, a better spouse, a better friend. Most people found, I don't know how many times we've gotten emails, and the athletes too, that they feel like their training and their mindset has helped them with their careers and gotten promotions and done things like that. So, you can choose to see it one way, and I think that can be true with athletes who might approach the sport with a certain type of perspective, which is sacrifice everything in their life just so they can go out and do X, Y, and Z, versus letting them use triathlon to kind of catapult them into being more confident and more able and just feeling better about themselves in general to do all the things they've ever wanted to do. And I think that is what it's all about.
It's a fine line walking, between that sometimes. And I think even on the other side, like if you're, I think we focus a lot on the nuance of not getting selfish, but being selfish. It's like that, on an airplane when the oxygen mask comes down. You got to take care of yourself first if you want to kind of be able to take care of, or be your best person and take care of other people. So we also talk a lot about how how to get from the depths up into the good place and then not go too far with it, I guess is the point. But yeah, it's awesome to see that, because I don't know, I put this thing out to the Facebook group, and I'm going to say it a little bit again because it was at the end of a podcast, and sometimes I'm sure people don't get to that end, but I was just calling out for people to, put some meaningful stuff into the group about themselves and maybe what they've come through, because I think it really does help inspire people and help people identify with things, challenges you may have had or whatever. And that's always a good thing, and that's sort of what we want to do with that group. It's our closed Facebook group. If you're not in there, you can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook and come on in. But rather than turning, as much as I love memes, I've I wanted to kind of, not turn into the traditional onslaught of like just nothingness that becomes a lot of triathlon groups at times.
Yeah, it is. We just don't want it to be that way. But again, I think this time of year, I think it's your request for people to kind of come out and share their stories more. I think it's such a good time of year to do it anyway, and I think people do a lot of self-reflection this time of year. When they're going back and they're planning on, how their year went, the things that did great, the things that they didn't, and then they kind of look at, what they want to do differently. And so people do a lot of self-reflection, and I think that it's such a great time as an athlete too to look back on the positive changes. And I think that is probably one of the more underestimated and not talked about not issues, but Yeah, I guess kind of an issue with athletes who tend to struggle this time of year is we all know the positive impacts, most of us do, the positive impacts that training have on us. Reduces stress, gives us energy, hopefully, unless you're an athlete that just likes to drive yourself into the ground every single session, which is kind of productive as well. But, it make you feel better about yourself, keep in shape, endorphin booster, all these kind of things that helps you in general, keeps you on point. And then when you don't do these things, the effects that it has on your life, and usually a not positive way. Obviously, if you're having to limit training because work is taking over, or life's taking over, sometimes you obviously have to make sacrifices for specific things in your life. But it's how you approach because everything is a choice, and we always have the opportunity to answer certain things in a specific way. And some people will choose to, like I have an athlete that basically was like, work is super stressful. Work is, life is, not this or not the way I want it right now. So I'm just not doing workouts just to rebel. And I was like, well, what? Well, I don't understand. What does rebelling against like the one thing that might make you feel good throughout the day, what does that do for you? And this athlete was like, well, it makes me feel like I have control over something. I'm deciding not to do this. And I was like, and so while I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go about it, it is, so many people will tell you that, happiness and things like that, those are things that are a choice. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to let things bother you. You can choose to do X, Y, and Z. And I think that, while we've harped on the past few episodes about, what it does to your fitness, I think one of the biggest things that people miss is that why the other parts of their life that are affected when they don't do this, when they don't train like the way that they have been, or they don't do that. And I think that's something that's so important to, and just kind of what we said, I think the last podcast is just getting out and just getting moving, and what it can do for you and mentally and emotionally, especially this time of year when so many people are traveling, and you got family, and you got stress, and you got work, and like stress is at like an all-time high for so many people, and how busy things are. It's also important to take time for yourself and do things for you, and it's not selfish. It's called self-care. And some people will call it one thing and the other. Oh, why are you this? Well, because I'm choosing to take care of me. Just like the same analogy you gave with like the oxygen mask on the airplane. I've heard that used as a great analogy on so many different areas of life, especially with people who are super codependent and always want to take care of other people and never put their priorities first, and they end up just totally burning out and wasting away because they don't have anything left for themselves. And so, while it's important to be flexible, it's important to, not be doing 20 hours a week like you're trying to train for Ironman right now, but it's also important to take care of yourself. And, I have this conversation with my wife a lot, and I'm pretty good at saying it, but no is a powerful word. And so if you feel the need that you need to take time and do something for yourself, 30 minutes is like nothing. You probably spend an hour and a half on social media anyway, so cut that down to an hour and go out and go on a 30-minute run or a 30-minute walk, or hop on your bike for 30. But do something these next few weeks. Do something for yourself. I know it's the season of giving, and you got kids and family and stuff like that, but it's in terms of the self-care aspect and the self-care approach that I think a lot of athletes dive into in triathlon in general, because I think they get into it on the self-care approach to start with. I think sometimes we lose sight of what it does for us and allows us to do for others.
Yeah, the whole thing about taking care of yourself is huge. But also is, I think one of the things about triathlon and just exercise in general and movement is it helps us feel like ourselves, and when you can kind of be yourself, there's nothing better than that. I mean, there's a certain cleansing factor there of being able to just be honest and just say what's on your mind. I had breakfast yesterday with a friend I haven't seen in a long time. I've been in touch with him, and he's been around town, and we used to hang out, and 10 years ago or more, and we used to be pretty big party buddies. But he, about 5 years ago, he had a seizure and went into the hospital, and they found out he had brain cancer. And he was telling me about how he immediately, in a weird way, knew that was like the kick in the pants that he needed to really live the life that he should be living. Mm-hmm. So he started recording. The minute they gave him that diagnosis, he pulled out his phone and he started recording like these phone diaries about like, okay, I have cancer now, and that's going to be the greatest opportunity for me to be vulnerable and to prove that, this isn't going to take over my life or whatever. I'm going to be positive, and this thing is going to be whatever. So he just started talking like from a super positive perspective. It was almost like I don't want to say he said it was a relief, but like it was this step in a direction that really allowed him to be vulnerable and honest with himself. And he said now he's kind of like turning that into a book and with audio book, video book, and these other things. And it was just we were talking, and man, he was just like being completely honest about everything. And he was talking about how much power that gives him and how much freedom it is just to be able to say that he's got flaws and whatever the case may be. And that, I think, maybe is at the crux of why I was calling for some of those. He was explaining it, and it dawned on me. It was like that's why I love that stuff, and that's why I like hearing people just say, "Hey, it's almost the opposite in a way of posting the mashing workouts or something like that, because you can go up and down. I'm sure this has happened. Maybe not to you because you're in a better place than I am most of the time. But you can go up and down Facebook or Instagram and stuff, man, and really kind of get at this time of the year, especially if you're not feeling it or you're not in a groove with something, you can start feeling a little bit like insufficient or something. But there's awesomeness in that. It's like I was reading somewhere that the antidepressant companies, pharmaceutical companies are trying to get into China, and there's a big fight over there in the Eastern philosophy about like, we don't want to fight depression because it's part of life. And so I just think that it's okay, to not be great. And like I was talking to an athlete in the club last night about how they have a hard time being on or slowing their run down because they're on, what's that? Not Zwift. What's the where do they post the Strava? So he was like, I think I'm going to get off Strava. And I said, that's a good thing. I said, I want to be your Strava, and I'll keep telling your ass to slow down. And it's a good thing.
That sounds like such a triathlete pickup line. Hey, baby, I'll be your Strava.
I'll be your Strava.
I had this thought yesterday on my own run as I'm kind of coming back from injuries and my hip's been bothering me, and I've just been running wise. I've just been having some issues, and I went out yesterday and I've been doing all of my runs blind, which I'm a fan of anyway, especially when you're coming back from any kind of an injury or anything. And I've just been taking things really, really slow. And I got done. I looked at my watch and I was like, yeah, that's not, am I happy to be there? No. Am I happy that I got to run pain-free? Absolutely. And my first thought after that was, it's not, my first thought was appreciation and joy and excitement for where I'm going to go, not disappointment with where I am. Because I think so many times athletes get have this negative self-talk about the immediate where I wanted to be right now, instead of this is just one step closer to where I want to go. And I definitely haven't always thought like that. I think that's something that you and I can, remind everyone too, is like when we talk about all these different things on the podcast, is that, we're talking to you from personal experience, not from, you shouldn't be doing this because it's bad, or, don't ever because we're perfect. Basically, everything we talk about is because we've already dealt with it, and so if we can help anyone not go down that road or help you get out of it, then we want to. But for me, I definitely always haven't been that way. I used to always be just incredibly a perfectionist, on terrible negative self-talk, was never good enough, just my total mindset was just, I was never enough. Nothing I did was ever enough or even good enough. And just to think, like, I got done, I was there in the greenway ahead, I was walking to my car, and I was looking at the pace, I was like, yeah, that's all right, but man, at least I got to do it. B, at least I went and did it. And C, it's just something about being on your way back that I think once you kind of like accept that, if you take away the immediate result and you're just excited to get, because I think like a good analogy is like, how pumped do people get to go on road trips? They get, like, the most exciting part for them is literally getting in the car to drive for a very long amount of time, usually, but with people that they like, and they're more likely to sit in traffic and things. But they're just excited to do what? They're just excited to get on the road. They're just excited to head towards what they know is going to be exciting, instead of just sitting on their ass on their couch not going anywhere. And so for me, that's kind of what it felt like. It was like, here we go. It's like my 2019 road trip has started. Am I where I want to be right now? Not particularly, but man, am I pumped to get going. And I think that, like, right now, that is such, like, I think it'd be such an important way to approach anything. Is just getting on the road.
Yeah,
getting on the road back.
Oh, that's so huge. It's kind of a takeoff of the hack thing. It's like 3 days to rip the abs or something like that, but it can't. Like, how many times we get trapped into this thing where we're like, okay, I think I've got it figured out now, and this is the way to do it, and I expect this within a week, I will be a totally different person.
That's right.
And and the first day you kind of are, because you're pumped, like, to get in the car, and then all of a sudden it's wow, man, this is a long trip here. It's kind of getting a little annoying, and then like the whole attitude changes. But that's what I've been thinking about lately, because I've been doing a lot of yoga, right? And that's one of those things where it definitely helps you, and I definitely feel some benefits from it. But I'm not, like, I can't do contortionist. I'm not like a circus act yet, and I'm not that flexible. And every once in a while, I reach over in the morning, I'm like, Jesus, I'm still tight. And it's like, this shouldn't be happening. But I've been trying to pay more attention to the little wins in there. And times that I do notice, it's like, I think this is working, This is the right path for me, but this may take years, But let's be okay with the little gains and stuff that is getting better, and don't expect, because you don't even know what that outcome is going to be. You just have to, like, feel better. And what I notice it most on usually is my runs, like the strength of it. And it isn't necessarily I'm a super limber, rubber band, but I can tell that my legs get stronger. Really, for me, it's more of a strength workout in a lot of ways, plus a balancing and a centering kind of act. People are like, why do you do yoga? I said, well, because it really balances me, not only physically but mentally. Yeah. And there's something about not swinging the pendulum back and forth, far to the right and far to the left, that can make you a little bit more sane. And that's really, to me, that's what it's all about, is just trying to not get those highs and lows, of my emotions and life, and my, outlook by racing. Like, one day I'm like, I'm going to crush this race, and the next day I'm going to be like, man, I don't know if I can make it. It's like, I'm trying to get rid of that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. And again, like, we talk about these things, and they may come across as, oh, this is totally easy. Listen, all this stuff is hard. If it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be something on our mind, because we would just, like, go out our lives, and it would, like, just totally, go off, water off our back like a duck. It just, like, it wouldn't even faze us. But these things are difficult, and they are, really, really, really hard to grasp and to kind of accept and to acknowledge. But again, like, it's this is real life, and the majority of our podcasts is that's why they're not geared towards, finite black and white, data driven. Let me tell you about my workout from A to Z and every watt and heart rate I push, because that only applies to me. And again, it applies in like a vacuum. So, but most of this, what we try to talk about is just real life circumstances, and that's why we also understand and we know that this podcast isn't for everyone. But these things are hard, and I think that one of the greatest obstacles that athletes have when it comes to achieving their best performance throughout the course of a year is failing to acknowledge, failing to accept, and failing to communicate when things are not going well. And like if I looked at the athletes that I work with, that I would consider probably the highest performers. And I don't mean highest performers as in like the ones who qualify for world championships, the ones that it's my points. I mean like highest performers as in they are always trending in a great direction and they are performing to the best of their ability. So it's totally different. And I think oftentimes we lose sight of what people's definition of is like a high performer. If I ever had an athlete that PR'd every single race and was on the podium every single race, but his marriage was going to shit and his job was out the window and he had no friends, then I would consider that a terrible performer. If in the way that I coach, and I feel like I would be failing him in general too, because high performance should be a total mindset in life, not just an obsession with no real care about other consequences. But the highest performers, again, that I work with, have a really, really good self-awareness of when they are struggling and an enormous amount of humility when they just don't have it. And they I guess in turn that would just really mean everyone has an ego. We all have an ego. If you say you don't, you're wrong and you're lying, because everyone does. It's just how you manage it and how it talks. Or what kind of actions come out of it. But they just have a really, really good self-awareness of when they're struggling and why they're struggling, and then what they need to do to get that back on track. And they communicate that so that the lengths of time that they're struggling shrink. Because every athlete that you see at some point struggles. They're not going to post it on social media. They're not going to post it on Strava. They're not going to give you a screenshot of their worst workout of the day or of the month. It's always going to be the best. So you see and you expect everyone has to be doing awesome and crushing it all the time. So when you're not, you feel like you're an anomaly, when that's the total opposite. The person who never has a problem, who goes through life with no issues, period, A, it's probably not true, but B, they're the anomaly. But we always treat ourselves by what we see, even though if we sit there and think about it for more than 5 seconds, we acknowledge that, hey, guess what? That's not reality, and it's definitely not mine. And so we often, so many times, act and profess and try to make these images our own reality. But again, if you really, really want, it's the same. When I talk about struggling emotionally or mentally with a certain aspect, in the highest performers that I work with, that amount of time shrinks. It's a direct correlation to the same athlete who deals with an injury or a sickness. Their recovery time is always shorter. Always, without question. Because they don't try to push through a workout, because they don't feel like they have to. They don't feel like they have to push through an injury, because they don't have to. They take the immediate action to get themselves better. Therefore, you have an athlete whose downtime with their mental and emotional struggles are fewer, and when it comes to physical struggles with a sickness or an injury or a niggle, that shrinks their time too. So they become more available all the time. Athletes who struggle with that, who always feel like they have to, if they're not, I have an athlete that I had to almost just say, I'm not going to work with you anymore if you don't stop. And that wasn't you, Manny. It was just because these athletes we all take our things that happen to us and things that we've dealt with as a child or as a teenager, and that just carries with us throughout life. And some of these athletes that I work with, if they came from like a gymnast, so I have a former gymnast and a former ballerina who, if you've ever if you've ever been in that sport in general, then you know that there is like, you basically always compete no matter what. If you're hurt, if you're overtrained, if you don't feel like
too, right?
You're always in the excruciating pain all the time. And so when they get to be an adult and they can actually make their own decisions, their first reaction, their first impulse, and their first answer is always, "Oh, I'm supposed to train through pain. If I'm not in pain, then I'm not doing something right." It's the same way with people who have gone through incredible anxiety in their life and have always had troubles with stuff, and they're like, "Oh, things are going great. Wait a minute, I need to find something to fuck my life up because excuse my language, I need something to really screw my life up because I can't function without some part of my life being in total utter chaos." And so they self-sabotage their lives, and they do all these horrible things, or they make these huge mistakes. They create chaos and drama and stress because it makes them feel more normal because they have a hard time sitting with just things like, being okay. And the same thing goes with athletes who are so used to either growing up in a sport where pain was like you just had to do it, and you had horrible coaches who driving into you like a hammer and a nails, like no matter what you're gonna do it, no matter what, no pain no gain, you're gonna do it. So they take these attitudes and these mindsets and these approaches to these hobbies where they have free will and they're the adults and they can do these things, and they end up running themselves in the ground, and then it's just hard to detach them from that mindset. But they'll never, ever, ever, ever be able to perform to their highest ability and be happy doing it if they don't let those things go. And the same thing can go for athletes who have ever worked with any coach in any hobby or any sport, no matter the age, that's always been run through it, go harder, go faster. Oh, you just got injured, but let's just hop on the track next week and that'll probably be fine. And they are just used to it. And things are totally 100% different. And if you're an athlete out there and you self-coach, every day you wake up and you look in the mirror, your first conversation you should be is do no harm. And coaches, every day you wake up and every time you interact with an athlete, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically, your first and number one thought is always do no harm. You take care. If you're a self-coached athlete, you take care of yourself. You do what's best for you. You show yourself grace. You manage your self-care. And if you're a coach, your number one job is to take care of your athlete 24/7, 7 days a week, set them up for success. Obviously, you can't be there every step of the way, but your job is to be there and limit those issues or the amount of instances or circumstances that may arise that you can't control.
Mm-hmm. And that's great, and I totally agree with everything you said there. I'm curious though how, because there's another spectrum of that like pain is kind of relative in some regards. To me, I always feel like it is a part of the sport. There are a lot of instances when you have to sort of reframe it in your head, or you have to go through it. And I'm not talking about serious injury pain, but like the little pains that, you get through. Because I'm sure that you've faced over your coaching career people who are on the other end of that spectrum who kind of immediately are I don't know, I don't want to say, they're kind of maybe trying to avoid it or get out of it because they don't understand that you're going to have to push through some of this stuff as well. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know what I'm saying? It's like, how's the balance?
You have to ask.
Yeah, like
tell me, so
maybe somebody who has been in the opposite situation of that growing up. Maybe always, I don't know if they're like, in too much safety zone or too much comfort zone or something like that. How do you break?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to keep asking, because as a coach, because you can't, even if you're a local coach and you see this person every single day, like what you see doesn't tell you the whole story. Like, you can't see how they're feeling or what they're pushing through or how they are mentally, emotionally. You have to ask questions. So, I was just joking about this the other day in our closed active athlete Facebook group, and I was like, I always kind of send out like a, hey, how's it going? Text, or how's it going? Like, in going back to like, is it what kind of, like, there's pain, then there's hurt, and then there's injured. And some athletes don't know the difference because they haven't even been there, because a lot of athletes sometimes don't do anything when they're growing up, or they do things, but it's just been so long they've just kind of removed themselves from, all right, is this good pain or bad pain? Is this pain as in like, this is how the workout's supposed to feel, or am I hurt, or am I injured? And you just have to keep asking, like, okay, well, so when you say like that hurt, is it like that hurt me structurally, or that my quads are just on fire? And like, so I think you have to ask, like, in context, is also, again, like, everybody communicates differently. But again, you just have to keep asking questions so you can figure out exactly the at the core what the actual answer is. And then sometimes you also have to say, like, listen, it's not going to feel great, but backtracking all the way to that question, if you're coaching an athlete and they're always in pain, then you're doing it wrong. Like, you don't, like, there are so many athletes out there that, and you'll see them, we all know them, that basically their level of success is based on how much pain they're always in. Or they've dug themselves a hole where they're crushed after every workout. Guess what? That's not really good for you. And it's not even a good barometer for success. You can't ram yourself into a wall every single day and expect to, things to work out. But in terms of hurt, pain, and soreness, and being uncomfortable, like, they're all different for everybody. But, as a coach too, you have to kind of accept that everyone also has a different level and a different pain threshold. So you got to figure out what that is. And then you have to figure out if a person is just used to pushing through pain too, or if a person is just not used to, like, what I would call, like, the growing pains of growth when it comes to training. That's just normal, accumulative fatigue. Scale on 1 to 10. How sore are you? Oh, I'm at 10. Okay, well, then the next day we need to change things up. You need to take an easy swim or an easy spin. You definitely don't need the day off, but you just need to take it really, 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 really easy. Like one of the more challenging, not challenging as in this person is challenging, but I have an athlete who is strictly a cross country and track runner, and she's 14. And so you think about, like, the difficulty between a 14-year-old's perception and vocabulary and ability to communicate certain aspects of how they feel or how things are going versus, me. 38-year-old guy married with a 2.5-year-old, like, figuring those nuances out are difficult, but you just have to almost, like, annoyingly ask questions to get the answer that you're looking for. And then, so, like, if you're a self-coach or whether you're a coach and, like, you see one thing, your first question usually for me, like, so this 14-year-old was commenting about some side stitches that she was having and some running, and so when you see which is painful, for athletes to get, like, I'm sure a lot of people have been succumbed to walking before with, like, a really serious side stitch. I think we've all gone there, and we're like, what the hell is this? And so many times it comes from so many different things. I know for me, I think I had when I used to live in Kansas City, I came back and did that Tom King half. I got a side stitch the first half mile. And my first thought was, when I've dealt with them before, it was I just wasn't breathing correctly out of the gate. I was already breathing out of my mouth when I didn't need to be. And a lot of times it comes from three things usually with athletes that I deal with. It comes from breathing out of your mouth the whole time, breathing in and out through your mouth the whole time, lack of sleep, and lots of stress. And so I was just going back and forth with this athlete and what's going on. Being let's sleep. No, I have final exams. No, I haven't been sleeping well. Yes, I breathe out of my mouth all the time. Okay, let's backtrack. And so you always have to troubleshoot again. Like, the answer is never just the answer. If you're trying to learn from it, and even for a self-coach athlete, the answer is never just the answer. It's always, almost like a what, when, why, or who kind of thing. Like, what happened yesterday? Why did it happen? How are you feeling today? And who is it going to make you tomorrow? Because sometimes it's not sometimes the training load that you applied wasn't wrong. You applied what should have been a correct session, but the athlete got 3 hours of sleep, had 2 job interviews, and was super stressed and didn't sleep all night. Okay, so of course, A, are you not going to feel that workout? But B, guess what? If you do the workout, your ability to recover and the amount of soreness and pain and your perception of that is going to be heightened. So again, like, when it comes to something as serious as any kind of pain or injury or niggle or hurting, it's always good to ask as many questions and kind of get to the root of all of why you think things are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And it's always interesting, when you talk about like cramps, sometimes it's like, everybody always immediately wants to blame it on nutrition or whatever, but sometimes, like, I think haven't we talked about in the past how that can just be like you're going out of your ability sometimes. Yeah, and the other thing, like plantar fasciitis, one of the athletes last night I was talking to had been struggling with that, and how plantar fasciitis, for example, everybody wants to just completely roll their foot and do tennis balls and everything like that, but usually it's something in the calf or the knee or even in the hip or the spine or something. It's like addressing the problem at the spot isn't always the answer. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of times there's no the answer isn't the answer is really good, because you just have to, and then that's the thing about balance for me, is like you have to really, it makes sense, like there's times when I'm getting a massage or something and they'll be rubbing my around my shin, and it'll like send a scathing dart into my stomach. It's just really weird how the body works, and asking questions and kind of exploring is so huge, man, because there is just so many things, and I'm always amazed, actually, since I started, running when I was 48 years old, and I was just in so much pain, and I think that, it just takes time, but over the years I've learned that, almost every time I go out, there's some kind of thing going on with my body, or what do you call it, a systems check, and then it's sort of like if you're, the half-mile mark, your ankle starts acting up, and you're like, oh, geez, am I going to, I got 10 miles to go. Am I going to be, and sort of it kind of goes away or whatever. I was thinking about how I wish, at some point I want to kind of, like, at least help with some kind of youth baseball program or something, because there were so many times when I thought I was just, like, out of commission, and how I just kind of gave in and had to sit out a game or whatever like that because of like the stupid little things that I think I could have mentally prepared for or mentally gotten through or whatever. So I always find this pain thing interesting, but I think you ultimately, like you're saying, you ask a lot of questions, I think, and ultimately that gets people thinking about what the heck's going on inside of them. And I think ultimately we only know our own answers, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if you have to figure that out, if you come off a run and you're dizzy and you feel like you're going to faint and, like, all these other things are going on, that's probably not good, Probably not a good sign. I'm sure that happens some days on, Track Tuesday or whatever, but I think you can only deal with that kind of stuff so much. I've done races early season where I've been way out of shape and pushed myself too hard, and I've been literally wiped out for a week, after an Olympic or something, and like, not just wiped out, but in a, almost red zone, kind of like, what's going on here? And that's not a good sign. I mean, you're just, it's about the road and building blocks and just knowing where you're at, man. I can't emphasize that as enough, right? Especially like You want to go out and get to Kona next year, but you're nowhere near ready right now, so don't even try.
Well, I think that I took two things from what you just said. Is in the first part was like the answer also isn't. I think people oftentimes confuse answers with solutions.
Okay.
If you're often looking at something, oh yeah, I got the answer. That just means you have the answer to what just happened, not the solution for the when or the why or the how it's not going to happen again. Or you can do it repeatedly. And so when it comes to pain and soreness and expectations and workouts, so many times athletes like I just don't know why I didn't have it today. And then you're like, hey dude, like look at the last 3 days. What the hell did you expect? And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. So you give them the answer, but if you don't help guide them towards the solution, which is how can we avoid this the next time via maybe addressing your recovery or your sleep or your fueling or how if you overran or you did something else the day before, swapped workouts, so you don't have to go through what you did today. So a simple answer doesn't mean you've solved it or it's a solution. But going back to the latter part of what you're saying is, I think it's just funny how we always fluctuate. Either we are so fragile or we are so invincible.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's insane. And I do think it like trends. I do think that in large part in social media exacerbates and actually kind of goes in trends itself. You just kind of become what you see, or your thoughts take you there, and then the further you dive, and you can kind of convince and sell yourself that you are one or the other. But most people are either are in a very, very fragile state, or they are invincible and unstoppable and bring it on, or I just can't do this. Instead of, I'm not really either. I'm just kind of like, I'm human. I'm gonna feel great one day, and I'm gonna feel like crap the next. But that doesn't mean, because it's all approach. How do you approach the day? Do you approach it to seize the feeling or the emotion that you have in just that moment, or do you approach every day the same? I'm going to do the work. I'm going to execute to the best of my ability. I'll be happy that I did it, and that's it. Instead of taking on putting on our fragile mask or our invincible mask, and that's how differently we're going to approach every single day. They have so many others have zero consistency across that platform to show any real improvement, because they're always going, and we see it all the time. We all know somebody, or you may even be this yourself, listening to this podcast, who's either crushing 50-mile runs or injured in a boot. They're nothing. It's either I'm too hurt, I'm too injured to keep going, or I can do anything and everything you throw at me. 2 Ironman in 2 weeks, I'm doing it. We got it. I'm like, dude, you just signed up for that from your hospital bed with 2 broken legs. But it's just we again, like when you just talk about being even keel and not getting too up or too down on everything in life. I think there's just so many people, and I think people argue, oh, well, then are you ever really, really, really happy? I'm like, dude, like I'm just fine. Like
contentment is all right sometimes,
What is wrong?
Nothing's wrong with contentment.
There's a huge difference, I think, in being content than being lazy, or not being proactive. You can be content and also be proactive at the same time. Because so many times with so many people, the most proactive thing they can do is keep showing up, and just keep going after it. And the things they're going to learn, the things they're going to, how they're going to perform, the things they're going to accomplish, are going to be so much greater than, again, the person who's sitting in their room trying to figure out how they're going to become the next greatest thing every single day, when they're just totally skipping, they want to be Bill Gates, but they don't want to be the guy in their garage. like he was.
Right, yeah.
They don't want to do that. They just want to be Bill Gates. Like, nobody wants that part. But they spend hours and weeks and days and years trying to be this when they don't want to do. I think that's what it is. Is you want to be something, you just don't want to become it. Because if you want to become something or become this or become that, you have to actually partake in that process every single day. Unless you're a lottery winner, you're just not going to wake up the next day and be rich. If you want to become wealthy, you need to do all these little things for years and years and years, or maybe even never, but try to get there. The same thing goes with athletes and how they approach fitness and how they approach wanting to get to X, Y, Z. They want to be an Ironman. And they take that aspect and they're going out and they're doing 2-hour runs in January, followed by 80-mile bike rides in February. They want to be an Ironman today. They're not obsessed with or ingrained or entrenched with the idea of becoming one. Like, there's nothing wrong with becoming a great father, a great husband, a great friend, always working at your, because I think if you're doing that, you're never giving yourself an end goal where your growth and the process and your ability to continue on and work hard, it never has a stopping point. It's infinite. If you're always trying to become the best this you can be, instead of just trying to arrive, when so many people are just obsessed with, and today of all days, National Signing Day for college athletes or high school athletes going to the days. So many of these 4- and 5-star athletes think they have arrived.
Yeah.
And you haven't done jack crap where and when it matters. And that's why in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see them never play a down at their college, never take a snap, transfer a million times, and never amount to anything athletically. But you're going to see more stories of these no-star or 1-star, 2-star athletes that don't even feel like they've arrived yet, but that are obsessed with working hard, that are going to end up being the best college athletes. And then some of them not even outstanding, widely acclaimed college athletes, but end up being ridiculously incredible professionals. And you see that if you ever sit down and watch an NFL game and you go down these lists, you're like, because I would gather many more people watch college football than professional. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but I have to imagine that. Half the time, you're like, I've never even heard of this person. And they're just like a run-of-the-mill, hard-working person that just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it for years and years and years and years and years. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. From middle school to high school to college, and finally they're professional instead of what they did a few years in high school, taking that approach to where they got, and they're there, and everything else is going to be handed to them in college then to become a professional. But it's that mindset of am I always trying to get there, or do I feel like I've already arrived?
That's the process. They're process oriented, and it's kind of like would you rather be a one-hit wonder or a long, band that sticks around for a long time, Because when you were saying that about the becoming an Ironman, I think it's interesting because if you're going for your first Ironman, I think the goal is to literally feel like an Ironman, like you're strong and you've built your body up to this place that makes you more resilient and makes you more confident and makes you more clear and all these things, instead of just lighting yourself on fire every day, and then the day you actually do it, you're on the shelf for the next year or whatever. Because you just barely hanging on by a thread, and you finally get across that finish line, and you're like, oh my God, how in the world did I even just do all that stuff? There's I forgot what you were saying exactly, but it reminded me of this saying that I always like to reference on this dude's tagline or whatever. But it was you know, he just says these are the good old days. Oh, I know, it was back to the you know, the garage was the good old days, you know, like how you look back on that, like Gates would be like, man, we had so much fun back then, you know, but we didn't appreciate it, you know. And that's how this is. It's like you don't want to always look back at college and say, man, that was the best time of my life. You know, it's just like, what does that mean? I always think about that because so many people are like, man, it was just so much better back when we were back in high school and we could do whatever we want. The whole thing is like, how do we make these the good old days?
Well, that's what I think.
How do you appreciate these being the good old days right now?
Well, it's the same thing goes with like how you approach, like you approach something that's infinite. I just always want to get better. And again, like if you go back to like some of the better attributes of the highest performing athletes that I work with, and again, these aren't the highest with the best times and the fastest times. It's just the ones that are always trending in the right direction with like just this relentless pursuit of I just want to keep getting better. And it's rarely ever a mention about a specific race. It's just become their way of life. They wake up, they try to get better.
When you get
That's
better,
it.
when you learn, when you get better, life gets easier. You know, I think that's a point too, kind of.
Yeah, and you don't give yourself a deadline or a stop, and it's over. And then because so many times again it goes back to like that internal or external motivation when athletes struggle this time of year is because they wanted to be an Ironman, and you know, so once they became it, it was over. And like the draw to being one again is like, well, I don't really want to be one again because I'm already one. So now what the hell do I do? I guess I better sign up for one again. And then it's not the same. It's athletes who are obsessed with or relentless in their pursuit of just continually becoming, not an Ironman, but becoming just the best that they can be, the fittest they can be, working as hard as they can, doing the best that they can, constantly improving. Like that's what doesn't have an end date. It doesn't have an expiration date. Your race day does, because a lot of people you don't want to see it that way, but I'm telling you right now, if you're looking at Triathlon, you're looking at a race, and that's the only thing you got going for you, then don't look at it as race date. Look at it as your expiration date. Your motivation is going to expire. Your will, your motivation, your drive, your level of commitment is going to expire on whatever your A race is, if that's your mentality. It is not a race date, it's an expiration date. But if you don't put that on yourself and you look at it as, I just want to wait. Like when I was first getting sober, it was so simple yet so hard to wrap my mind around, you know, the phrase of, oh, just one day at a time. Because the next day you're going to wake up and it's going to be 10 years. But if you try to be the sober guy that's already got 5 years and do those things, you probably can't. You know, or you're looking so far ahead that you think, like, I'll be totally honest, this is like the first time I've ever felt like it's been a long time. But if you had told me I would be, you know, 5+ years sober 5+ years ago, I've been like, like, dude, you're nuts. Like you're crazy, because you can't wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
But if you do something as simple as, I'm just going to do the best I can today, and then tomorrow, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it all over again. Because you know what I can do? I can do the best I can in this 24-hour span. I can do the things I'm supposed to. I can talk to the people I'm supposed to. I can work hard. I can be diligent. I can do the best that I can for just these 24-hour span. Not the pressure of having to do it for a week, of doing it for like or a month. Like I came across my chip that I got when I was, I think, 30 days in the other day. And I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing and where I was sitting. And I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe I've done it this long. And it was like 30 days, where, you know, versus like now where it's been. But I think it's so much easier to attain. Like I can, like if people didn't have to schedule out, I would love for people to only have access to just seeing the training plan they have for today. You know, but I understand you can't be. But it's so much about not giving the things you do and what your purpose is and what you're motivated on gaining an expiration date. it doesn't need one. The only date you need to worry about is today, and what you're going to do today, and how you're going to approach it, and how you're going to execute, and that's it. And then wake up tomorrow and try to do the same thing again.
These are the good old days,
aren't they? Though.
Mm-hmm.
So people keep telling me.
All right, that sounds like a good place to hit it, man.
Yep. Let's wrap it up. And if we don't talk to you again, if you don't listen to us, we hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. Or if that's already passed, I'm not sure. And whatever other holiday, you celebrate or don't celebrate. We
you don't
appreciate, or whatever. We appreciate you listening as always. Hope you've got some kind of benefit from it. Again, you can check out all the things that we do at crushingiron.com. And we will catch you again, as always, released on Monday on Christmas Eve.
Wow, Christmas Eve cast.
Christmas Eve cast.
Sounds great, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
See you, dude.
See ya.